Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first edition of the Intel Hub News Brief, joined by Popeye tonight. And I'm talking about Iowa. And why are we talking about Iowa? Very simple, because there were some shenanigans afoot that went down in Iowa, and we need to talk about this and get it out so more people can dig and investigate as to what went on in Iowa. So let's start by first asking a very simple question. Santorum? Really? The Brad blog actually goes over something it's called, their article is called GOP Iowa Caucuses, Photo ID Free Registration and Voting on Publicly Hand-Counted Paper Ballots. The Iowa GOP set forth rules prior to the 2012 Iowa caucuses, which happened to say that there is no photo ID necessary for any voters in the Republican Iowa caucuses. No photo ID is necessary to register as a Republican at the caucus site, even if you're not already a registered voter. You may then cast your vote at the caucus on the same day you've registered without that photo ID. All caucus votes were on hand-marked paper ballots. All those paper ballots will be counted by hand in public, with the results announced at each of the 1,774 caucus sites before the results are called into Central GOP headquarters, where it was secret. So, Popeye, no photo ID, dude. So anybody, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can go up, and from what I understand,
So
they
how do
can
they
go
know
up.
everybody was from Iowa? How do they know they didn't come from other states to support Romney or Rick Santorum? I mean, really?
You
Santorum pulls ahead in the polls in 24 hours? Right.
you remember in 2008 when Barack Obama bussed in truckloads of people to vote for him. This is the same thing that's going on here, and it was specifically put in place prior to the vote so that they could do this. This is what happens. And you have to ask yourself, because we've got sources on the ground in Iowa that are saying the exact same thing. What happened? Rick Santorum? I mean, people are actually surprised in Iowa at these results. I mean, this is absolute craziness. And I think I brought this up on my show last night, Popeye, that um, Drudge Report actually did a caucus of their own, where Matt Drudge was not only counting the national votes, but he was separating the Iowa IPs from that to give you a snapshot of what the people were voting for computer literate people, what they were voting. And you had it was 33% to 20%, Paul over Romney, 33 to 20. There was a 13% differential, which, if you think about it, now I didn't do any math, but I can do the math based on not only what I saw with the Drudge caucus, but what I saw on like CNN, where people were twittering in their nominee, who they thought should be the nominee, and of course, Paul was hitting it 2-1. He was double the closest person, and the Iowa results are Mitt Romney and Santorum behind by 7 or 8 votes. This just doesn't make sense. And people need to be asking questions.
Well, there is that video that came out. I guess the guy's got a radio show or whatever, and he was streaming on Ustream, and he was talking to that she's a Republican like insider. I forget her last name. Her name's Dee Dee something. I think you know her full name, Joe.
Nah, I don't remember it
And
either.
but you know who I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely, and of course, folks, you can listen to this. Alex Jones actually played this whole interview in its entirety on his show, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. But it's so important to go back to this because this really highlights the corruption in Iowa. So, can you play that clip?
This is Monday evening, January 2nd, and it's an insider admitting that she knows that the Iowa GOP was planning election fraud because they did not want Dr. Ron Paul to win in Iowa because they were afraid it would make Iowa look bad and nobody would take Iowa politics seriously. And because, of course, the media kept pushing that. So check it out. Here we go.
Speculate a little bit here because I've sensed from some of the party apparatus in Iowa that there's some grave concern about Ron Paul showing very well in the caucuses here because there's concern, frankly, that Iowa will caucus itself into oblivion, and the party will say, listen, if Ron Paul is what Iowa picks for us or gives Ron Paul this kind of prominence, maybe Iowa shouldn't be first in the nation for our party next time around. And we know that the Iowa caucuses are important to this state and to the economy. Is it possible that the party apparatus here could be silently asking those district chairmen to start swaying some important caucus members over to the anti-Paul side, which may end up being Santorum being the beneficiary of that? Is that? And again, we're just speculating, but do you see a scenario like that happening?
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not speculating. I've talked to the party officials. I know they were concerned about it because that takes away their significance in Iowa. They want to keep number one in the nation, and then if you nominate someone who doesn't have a snowball's chance, that's not good for them, and they know that.
You see how he doesn't have a snowball's chance. Doesn't have a snowball's chance. If he didn't have a snowball's chance, you and the rest of the establishment whores wouldn't be running around doing what you're doing, trying to discredit him. Okay?
That's right.
If he didn't stand a chance, you wouldn't be so worried about him. You would be like, whatever. Okay? So that's such a line of crap at some.
Harkens to the fact that or harkens to what everybody said. Well, Ron Paul's not electable. Well, yeah, I mean, if nobody votes for him, he's not electable. But if everybody votes for him that believes in what he says and believes in his track record and votes just on a basis of let's stack all the candidates up together and let's just vote for the most honest person up there. You don't necessarily have to agree, but let me just put them all up there and see who the most honest person is, and I'm going to vote for him. Ron Paul would win in a landslide. But so that's what makes them quake in their boots.
Joe, he's crazy. Okay, I mean, the
there's
guy wants to follow the Constitution.
I know
the Bill of Rights. We can't have
radical.
That in this country. I know it's radical. It's radical thought.
It's almost homegrown extremism at its core.
Of course, you can tell. I mean, a politician that wants to actually follow the rules that he's supposed to. Are you kidding me?
Ron Paul, straight to the detention center.
Well, that's what they would do if they honestly had their way. I mean, this is ridiculous. They tell people, and when I say they, it's the establishment GOP and the mainstream, or I should say lamestream media, and they tell you he's not electable. Oh, there's no way Ron Paul could get elected. He could never beat Barack Obama with that attitude that they say it with. First of all, Paul would slaughter Obama in a debate. Okay? Obama wouldn't be able to hold his own against Dr. Paul.
With or without a teleprompter.
Dr. Paul could be blindfolded and he would be able to hold his own against Barack Obama.
That's right.
Okay? He doesn't really even practice speeches. He usually shoots from the hip when he goes up and talks. And that's completely the 180 of what you've got in charge right now. So they need, like Joe's wife made a good point a couple hours ago off air. They need a empty suit to go up against Obama that Obama could win. They need somebody with no personality and that is easily defeatable, like
right.
Mitt Romney or Rick Santorum.
Which won't happen. And because here's the honest truth of it all. Rick Santorum sunk all his assets into Iowa. Okay, so he comes up close in Iowa. He's running at 4.3% right now in the latest New Hampshire poll. And he's stinking up the house down in South Carolina. And there's no way that he's going to mobilize a force, if it's done legally, that he's going to poll or do very well in these primaries.